Advanced English Arabic Learning Session 64. Beyond the forces of sheer entertainment, the director doesn't pull punches in his assailing the church. I dozed off for a few seconds. He is quickly running out of excuses. The ministry has failed to make a dent in the plethora of criminal activity assailing the country. You're an arrogant little toad. The wind assails the outside walls of my house as if testing their fortitude. Keep your chin up. Police deliberately herded the demonstrators into a trap and then arrested them. Don't bruise my body. I fell and bruised my knee. Is it day or night? A lonesome town. A humdinger of a funny story. They are able to decipher much of the language spoken to them, but they do not speak it. The convergence of misfortune was a freak event and it won't happen again. It's just a cheap knockoff. Injuries can lead to tetanus if people get puncture wounds. Sometimes I feel I'm losing my grip. Polygamy explicitly places women in a subordinate position in society. The board said the airline is likely to emerge from bankruptcy on its own. She's not here now and I have to do things on my own. On its own, it has no taste. It sings, on its own behalf. It dines on its own feces. She tried to get a grip on the icy rock. The climber slipped and lost her grip. They are failing to get a grip of the problem. Time to relax, unwind, and loosen your grip. A country in the grip of recession. She saw his shadowy figure emerge at the end of the alley. He crouched low and endeavored to merge into the darkness of the forest. Try adjusting your grip on the racket. Regardless of the outcome, it is difficult to envisage the resumption of business as usual afterwards. Professional norms dictated faith and loyalty not just in deed but in spirit. He held the reins of power under the constitutional system. Is this truth or malicious slander? The evidence points more towards hoaxing and delusion than real discovery. How many wedges are in a lime? What is deceit or delusion, and what is genuine in this movement? I haven't told anyone else yet. Wait, don't go yet. Manor, a large country house with lands. Hardwood garden stakes. People's lives could be at stake, at risk. The bill also contains a pilot program that would rehabilitate nearly 1 million acres. Humor me. She has an incurable cancer. More recently, he has endured the most horrendous bad luck in terms of injuries. His tales are full of humor. There are several phrases, tossed about casually in everyday conversation, which gnaw at my brain. Their inimitable brand of humor. Her good humor vanished. The antiquated defense of insanity is rarely invoked today. She stapled a batch of papers together. Same arguments were used to invoke the people to vote. I verily believe myself to be a free woman. Verily these men are mad. For all its pretty pictures and quirky anecdotes, this is a soulless book. Centipede. The film is very quirky and offbeat, which means it'll probably be a commercial flop. Sarah squeezed in beside her. Their portfolios and performance will suffer mightily if this issue is allowed to flop. It was a tight squeeze in the tiny hall. The doctor can squeeze you in at noon. Can I squeeze in please? The car was hit by the bus and the car skidded onto the pavement. She woke to find a strange inscription on the palm of her hand. She spoke with a gruff, masculine voice. To clean between your teeth with dental floss. One nest was parasitized after incubation had begun. Floss your teeth after your meal. The place just pongs of dirty clothes. The waters of the Nile slipped beneath the hull and the boat hauled for the western shore. Corked wine has a powerful pong. The maritime industries in all their variety, from building 5-masted schooners to rowboats. I'd like to stick around and watch the game. No one is going to stick around forever. A wispy mustache. The schooner's deck was much lower than the edge of the wharf. A figure wearing a grotesque mask. A lifestyle of grotesque luxury. The mistreatment of animals leads inexorably to the devaluing of all forms of life. Your opponent was prepared to exert himself to the utmost to achieve his objective. All soldiers were killed or maimed. He was maimed in an accident. The Earth's strong lithosphere exerts stress on the weaker asthenosphere. Shoddy. Audiences at early screenings of the film were repulsed by its brutality. Cash ain't a problem, I know where it goes. The area has been cordoned off and people living in the vicinity have been evacuated. An alcoholic haze. The police threw up a cordon around the home and fanned out across the city. Police officers helped cordon off the area to keep the public safe. The reason for this difference is hypothetical and may be ascribable to two different phenomena. A World Cup qualifier. We scrambled over the damp boulders. Firms scrambled to win public sector contracts. Leaving aside the infinitesimally small world of math geniuses. There isn't any evidence that men are more intelligent than women. Maybe the alcohol has scrambled his brains. You may have your eggs scrambled or boiled. An undignified scramble over the wall. Discrimination and prejudice are all around. I lost Tommy in the scramble for a seat. She finally got her career in gear. After flipping through the tome for nearly half an hour, she had to admit defeat. These two concepts were stirring great philosophical dilemmas. Ahead of International Day of Yoga. These tomes are far too serious for his feeble intellect. She's a little offbeat, but she's a wonderful actress. Single-leg knockout games. The public library is a majestic bastion of encyclopedic tomes. Bookcases filled with tomes of indecipherable writing lined the walls of the library. His arm will not scar. He hoovered up 3 slices of cake. Public libraries brought the wisdom of the ancient and modern tomes to the common man. The puppy wriggled in his arms. Naturalization rates increased during the 1920s. The next decade was marked by a political watershed. Susie wriggled out of her clothes. The City Council voted unanimously in July to make the entire watershed an ecological reserve. Don't try and wriggle out of your contract. They are sitting on a stupendous amount of oil after all. The baby was wriggling around on my lap. The report finds that the cost of these disparities is stupendous. She wriggled her toes. You would think this was a switch doomed from the start, given the completely disparate nature of the two jobs. The fish wriggled out of my fingers. The quests of the motley participants were too disparate to find common ground. She managed to wriggle free. When I was a pupil. As a lyricist, he still oscillates between occasional felicities and frequent triviality. The king was forced to abdicate. The dorsal and pectoral fins have hard spines, whereas the anal and caudal fins are soft. The body was washed and shrouded. Years may wrinkle the skin, but to give up enthusiasm wrinkles the soul. She wrinkled her nose as she caught a whiff of disinfectant. Mountains shrouded by cloud. Our denial and our politicians' stupidity have put us all in grave danger. He was buried in a linen shroud. A shroud of mist. The sun blazed down. I ran like blazes homewards. With the other executed rebels, his body was put into a mass grave. A smog-shrouded ravine. Fraudulent patriotism. He's still exerting his influence from beyond the grave. Food additives are retarding spoilage. The law enforcement forces already on the ground did not manage to exert sufficient influence. The Grand Canyon. She has been able to spend more time with her grandchildren and exert a beneficial influence. He gets 35 grand a year. This is peer pressure, societal pressure, and all the other social norms exerting their influence on you. A roller rink is a floor for roller skating. An army officer of high rank. Persons of rank and breeding. The ranks of Britain's unemployed. When finishing her training, she was seconded to work in a maternity unit. He will propose me and I'm confident I will be seconded by his family. It's an acknowledgement of an inexorable female march into areas previously dominated by men. The Guardian's argumentation is pure sophistry. He was addicted to opium. The burglar was spotted by vigilant neighbors. She experienced a sharp pang of guilt. Pangs of hunger. The end. Coming next. Session 65.